Thank you so much for coming out on what nearly is winter. It's pretty chilly. Luckily it's much warmer out in this back room. And you're all to be congratulated for coming out tonight and getting away from the screens. There is so much online activity these days that it is so beneficial to get out and meet with other business owners. My name's Karen Powell and I'm the founder of Your Time Matters. We've been running events for 3.5 years now. And so I know some of you have never been before. And so you're probably curious about what happens at these events. Or maybe you're thinking, oh, it was good last year, I'm glad I'm here again and I'm going to catch up with some familiar faces. Or maybe it's the topic that interests you because you know that you need to keep making changes in your business. You know that there are things that can be done better in your business. And so you have come to support 4 very brave speakers who are going to share their thoughts. And I'm delighted that they've stepped out of their comfort zones and that they're going to be involved. The criteria that the judges will be using is on the table. There is a copy for each table. You don't have to worry too much. You just might be interested in it. The panel will be looking at the speakers' ability to engage, signs of preparation, that they address the criteria, the questions, and that they keep within the 5 minutes. There is a People's Choice Award, so you have a job to do, the person that's going to make an impact on you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Innovation. Well, it's a pretty impressive sounding word, so I guess you can be forgiven for thinking it's the latest corporate buzzword. But actually, the definition of innovation is, it's a concept of doing things in ways that have never been done before, that actually lead to outcomes that provide real benefit to others. And I emphasise that last sentence, leads to outcomes that provide real benefits to others. What innovation isn't, is doing something different alone just for the sake of change. It needs to go that step further and actually be useful by delivering real improvements on how things were prior to the change taking place. So it actually needs to make a difference to the lives of others. So this leads to the point, why would you actually bother? Because after all, it seems like a hell of a lot of trouble to go to. Well, this slide here alone tells you exactly why innovation is essentially non-negotiable. I first saw this slide last year at an accounting software conference and it really had a massive impact on me. There's really no middle ground here. You either innovate or you perish. The early adopters eat the late adopters. So what is it going to be? Are you going to be a fish or are you going to be a shark? Go on, be a shark. It's either that or be a fish and get bitten on the backside, which would have rather unpleasant consequences for you and your business. So be a shark, it is really a good idea.
Good evening, everyone. That is definitely me. Yeah. So when the topic of innovation came up, I did what most people do when they're thinking about pulling in some additional ideas from somewhere else. They go to Google, and I thought, okay, well, let's just see what Google comes up with. And I found something from the Department of Industry, Innovation and Science, and I thought this sounds pretty intelligent. It says innovation is changing processes or creating more effective processes, products or ideas. And then I thought, that sounds like it's all too much waffle. So, that's not me. So, what I found, and I liked it, I can't remember whether I made it up or whether I pulled a bit of something from everywhere else, but either way, I thought it sounded okay. Coming up with new ways of doing things. So, it's not rocket science, it's not revolutionising the industry necessarily, it was just coming up with new and creative ways. So, why innovate? Well, there's 2 reasons I think that people always make some sort of change. It's either because they're feeling passionate and excited about the prospect of what's ahead, or they're fearful of what might come. And the passion side of it, the good reasons for innovation, they're great. But I thought in terms of really making an impact, I'd show you a couple of the businesses that perhaps were a little bit slow off the mark and they failed to innovate. And these are some names that have been around for a very, very long time. We've grown up with. Borders, I mean, who would have ever thought they would go under? Kodak would have been unheard of. Blockbuster, well, they were everywhere. And these are businesses that failed to change, failed to innovate. So as much as you want it to be a positive thing for innovation, it's always a good reminder to see what happens to those businesses that you could never think would go anywhere else. So, in terms of what innovation isn't, it doesn't have to be inventing a new light bulb. And this is one of the things that I really thought that, innovation, well, it's got to be something that's never been done before, never been created before, something very, very new in the industry or new to a business. But it doesn't have to be making the better sliced bread or something of that
We've
nature.
established who I am.
It can be.
Hi everyone. I'm going to talk to you about innovations and the law, or being innovative in the law. And it's a funny subject, because when you come to me as a client, you want me to be clear in my thoughts, you want me to understand your business, and you want me to give you legal advice which is both practical, cost effective, and will set you in the right direction. You don't necessarily want me to be innovative, even though being innovative, it's quite helpful, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to give you the right advice. So as clients, often I find that what I say to them, they'll do because they trust me. So I can actually give them a crap advice, be innovative, but it's wrong. Or I can give them a good practical advice, which could be boring, but that's the right advice for them. So innovation and the law, it's a funny thing. But let's kickstart, since I've just wasted a minute talking about nothing. So from an innovation point of view, from a business point of view, what is innovation? It's a process of translating an idea into an invention of goods or services that creates value for the customer. Ideally, the process will replicate in an economic way that can provide a monetary value to the initiator, being the person, and some needs from the consumer end. In other words, it's really entrepreneurship, which is really what your businesses are doing all the time. You're thinking about whether there's a need, you think about a new product or service, you come up with it, you're an entrepreneur, you've just innovated something fantastic. So now you need to consider yourself, what does it mean from a legal perspective? From a legal perspective, it's really, for me, it's the exchange of one obligation or process for another, so that the second shall come in place of the first. And hopefully the second is actually a much better process, a much better idea, or a much better implementation of what you want to do.
Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but I guess I'm kind of standing here in front of you as a result of innovation. And the reason why I say that is because I went through a breast cancer journey sort of coming up to 5 years ago, and I'm a little bit like the bionic woman. I've had all sorts of parts taken out and replaced, what have you. But if it wasn't for the innovation in the medical field and the treatments that are available now as opposed to a few years ago, I wouldn't be standing here. So in some ways, my sort of journey and what I'm doing now is highly influenced. My purpose comes from that journey of wanting to put back and make a difference. Is it just an arrow? So that slide isn't really great, is it? But my definition of innovation is looking at better ways of doing things that meet a need or a purpose in the world, but in a human way, in a planet-centric way, because I think we sort of get a little bit lost in the day-to-day, and is it about business, and is it about making a living? But is it, we live on this tiny little planet that really is like a little golf ball. And if we don't sort of start thinking about why we should be innovating or what we should be doing, well, I just don't see that it's all that sustainable.
Hey everybody, bon appetit. So Rachel Odiger, so Franco-Australian, born in Australia, proudly Australian, but spent 20 years in France and married a Frenchman and brought back French kids and so on, so hence the funny name. Interesting. I'd like to call up the four little competitors of today, just to do a quick exercise with me, if you would. To each of you, if you just take this and show it to the group, if you would. So I'm giving them a very simple task, and they've got very little time to complete it. They've got to do. Here are the horses, and these are the riders. We want it comfortably riding, no folding, no ripping, no nothing. You've got 1 minute. Well done. I'd love.
phone? No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are two people stuck on an escalator and we need help.